How's everybody? All right. Glad to hear it. So thank you all for coming to the Kerouac House farewell reading of Zach Zimmerman. We were excited to have him, and we're sad to see him go. A little bit about Zach Zimmerman. Zach is a writer and comedian who was recently named a 2023 Vulture Comedian You Should and Will Know. Zach's writing has been published in The New Yorker, McSweeney's, and The Washington Post. And Zach's first book is It Hot in Here? Or Am I Suffering for All Eternity for the Sins I Committed on Earth? Was named a Barnes & Noble Best Book of 2023. So far. You did delete that part. A regular at the Comedy Cellar, Zach has appeared on The Late Late Show with James Corden, Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, After Midnight, and Zach's first comedy album, Clean Comedy, debuted on the Billboard Top 10. Ladies and gentlemen, Zach Zimmerman.
Appreciate you. Fame has been so fragmented in our modern age. It's hard to know if anyone is. Also, fun fact: Late Late Show doesn't exist anymore, and After Midnight's about to be canceled. So, yeah, if you want your TV show to be canceled, just book me on it, and I will. Adjust this to my gargantuan height. Thank you. Oh, perfect. Oh my goodness, I've enjoyed myself so much in this house. I've written so much fantastic new material that my ego is too fragile to share. But so I'll share one of the hits today. But I did want to say I've thoroughly enjoyed my time here in Florida. I don't think I'm quite yet a Florida apologist, but it's getting pretty close. It's getting close. I've on my first The Welcome Potluck here, a very straight man who's not here now recommended I do two things in Florida. He said go to the Kennedy Space Center and go on an airboat ride. And I'm happy to report I've done both of those classic Florida things. I've also been to a gun show and a psychic convention. So I feel like I have learned all the ways that Florida protects itself. And what other observations of Florida do I have? The waving, I still haven't figured out quite yet. I thought in the South everyone would be very friendly and wave, but I noticed in this neighborhood people don't really wave, so I stopped waving. And then I saw a woman who did wave and filled me with so much joy that I decided I would start waving. And the next person I saw, when I waved at them, they didn't wave back. I got scornful glance. I gave big wave, they gave scornful glance. So I don't really know culturally what the rules are here. I'm going to read a piece from the book that was mentioned. The original title was something more like On Your Right, Fire and Brimstone, but the publisher thought that Is It Hot in Here? Or Am I Suffering for All Eternity for the Sins I Committed on Earth had more of a punch to it. And who's to say who was right and who wasn't? But this is the opening chapter. It's about me and my mom, and it sets the stage for our relationship. This is Salad. The battle began at the Myrtle Beach Costco. I was steering a shopping cart with enough food to stock a doomsday bunker when I spotted a bulky bag of spinach. We could make a salad, I suggested. You can make a salad, Mom answered. I'm not going to have any salad. First blood had been drawn. Mom's dinner table had always been a parade of simple Southern recipes, dishes that seemed to say, we're all going to die of heart attacks, so let's do it as a family. For a newly minted New York City slicker to return home and suggest a salad, not of the macaroni persuasion, on Thanksgiving of all days, was blasphemy against God. Of course, I no longer believe in God. It had already been a challenge for Mom to get me home for Thanksgiving. I'd skipped the last 4 years, opting for romantic trips abroad with my boyfriend. Now, newly brokenhearted, I decided to pull a prodigal child, do the right thing, and return home. Spirit flies direct from New York, Mom texted me. Going home feels like going backwards, I thought, but didn't say. The flight was turbulent enough to induce labor, but we managed to land without any change to the number of souls on board. My entire family, 2 sisters, brother, mom, dad, and my older sister's 3 children were in the airport lobby with a welcome home Zach sign. The spectacle suggested I was returning for war. I'd just forsaken my familial obligations. My mom smiled and gave me a one-handed hug, the other hand gripping my 6-year-old niece's baby doll. I tossed my tiny bag in Dad's truck and rode shotgun. We talked about the weather and city living. Meanwhile, I worried that if I mentioned my ex-boyfriend too loudly, he might drive us into a ditch. There's a tension in southern air, the strange bedfellows of homophobia and humidity, and the ever-present terror that the person you were might be long behind you, but they're still breathing down your neck. On Thanksgiving morning, Mom was in the kitchen preparing cardiovascular warfare. I observed her at work with enough distance to be curious, almost ethnographic, and offered commentary on my findings. "You put sugar in the deviled eggs?" "Just a little," she said, matter of fact. "You know there's already sugar in practically everything," I explained. "Big food adds sugar to keep us addicted." "Oh, is that so?" she said, stirring and not changing a thing. I carved out a corner on the counter and started to put together my simple salad. Spinach, a few tomatoes, some cheese. I'd never really been in the kitchen much as a kid. Chores were gendered and uneven in our house. Women did the cooking, washed the dishes, cleaned the bathroom, kitchen, and living room, and ironed clothes. Men mowed the lawn. On the TV was the Macy's Parade, a fabulous Broadway musical number snuck in between the masculine Spider-Man and bro-y Hulk balloons. I watched it as I finished my 3-ingredient masterpiece and asked Mom if I should put on the dressing now or later. "Yeah, put it on there," she answered, "and stick it in the fridge so it stays cold." Maybe Mom was warming up to a collaborator in her kitchen, her queer kid doing her work. She told me she loves me, something she says so often it seems like she's trying to convince us both. "Think you'll have any?" I asked. "Nah, I'm not going to have any salad." My 2 nieces set the dining room table, used so infrequently it feels like playing house. Every seat would be full this holiday thanks to my older sister's addiction to having children. My nephew and nieces, referred to as the babies, don't know me well at all, a casualty of my not visiting. A friend told me you can show up for a niece or nephew at any age, but I feel bad that we're not closer. I didn't grow up in this house, so it always feels a bit fake to think of it as home. My parents moved from Roanoke, Virginia to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina during my first year of college. Generations had lived in a small circle in the Shenandoah Valley until my entrepreneurial, adventurous mother set her sights on the shore. She built her dream 20 minutes from the beach house. Her act of generational geographic rebellion must have been genetic. I was living my dream, too, in New York. Ever since high school, when a coach bus drove me and 40 classmates to watch The Witches of Oz from the nosebleeds, I knew I wanted to live there. After a 2-long tour of duty in Chicago, a cataclysmic breakup finally jettisoned me to the city of 4 a.m. bars. I was living my sharing a single bathroom with 3 other adult humans dream. If everything turned out exactly as we planned, we'd be very bored gods. When the meal was ready, everyone took their seats. Dad emerged from hibernation. He looked gentler now that I remembered, a soft gray beard hiding his neck. He never hit us, except with zingers and Bible verses. A pastor in a past life, Dad could deliver full-length sermons at the dinner table, hellfire and brimstone as appetizer and aperitif to any meal. Today, hunger bested the Holy Spirit. "Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the meal. In Jesus' precious name we pray, amen." The prayer ended and my 10-year-old nephew outed me. "Zach's eyes weren't closed." Mom shot me a stare, but broke it quickly. A 4-year timeout had put everyone on their best behavior. We silently agreed to try to keep things light on Turkey Day. Instead of yelling about atheism, Christianity, Trump, abortion, homosexuality, kids in cages, racism, capitalism, and socialism, we passed the mac and cheese and potatoes. "None for Zach. Zach's a vegetarian," my younger sister said when the turkey made its rounds. Our plates were filled and emptied. "Why don't we all say something we're thankful for?" my mom pitched. It's a tradition we'd done as children. I always sat anxiously during the game, shame and fear pulsing through my body because I knew there was only one right answer. "Jesus Christ," my youngest niece said dutifully. I wondered if her answer would change over time, and as drastically as I had, from a straight, meat-eating Christian conservative to a queer, vegetarian, atheist socialist. Would she get the space and time to dig and grow, or just pour some more sugar in the deviled eggs? After a couple more thankful answers, a few Jesuses, and a gas price joke from Dad, I became brave enough to share my truth. "I'm thankful for Lady Gaga." "Zachary," my mom chided. I smiled and course-corrected. "I'm thankful to be with my family." "Aw," she cooed. Slices of her no-bake cheesecake and a pecan pie from Cracker Barrel, recruited in recent years to help out as the matriarch aged, were distributed. A plastic pitcher of sweet tea met its demise. Dad retreated to the recliner in his bedroom to watch football with my brother while my sisters cleared the table and loaded the dishwasher. At 15 minutes total, the meal was more of a feeding than a sit-down dinner. Its brevity kept us from hurting each other. Family members always have the nuclear codes for each other, the precise collection of words and phrases that when entered cause total annihilation. Tonight's short summit staved off mutually assured destruction. I helped my sisters put the leftovers in the fridge when I saw the carnage. Drowning in buttermilk, waterboarded by ranch, wrinkled beyond recognition. My salad. I reached for the bowl to see if any of it could be salvaged, a mother not ready to say goodbye to her child, but the ingredients had already decomposed. I considered taking a bite, but dessert had left me no room. This victory would go to my mother. Her subtle but effective smear campaign against something green on her dinner table was a success. Perhaps it was a fool's battle to begin with, to push against the juggernauts, the parade balloons of tradition and mom and home, but I tried and failed with pride. Mom passed behind me as I poured the aftermath into the trash. "Oh no," she said. "Guess none of us are having salad." That's salad. That's Patty Zimmerman. Thank you. Her and I just went on a cruise together, which we did a year before, and that's been the book-length project that I've been working on, 7 days with my mom at sea as the backbone, and then dipping back into stories of our past. That's what the Post-it notes on the wall are. And have a pretty crappy first draft of the thing, thanks to the Jack Kerouac house and the time and space. I didn't realize how important it is to have separate rooms for different activities. In my studio in New York, it's all as one, but it's very nice to be able to walk to your bedroom and walk to an office, even if it is just a couple steps back and forth. That was my main piece that I was thinking of sharing. Feels like maybe I could dig up something else. I'm going to record this to see when you laugh or don't so that I can edit it from that. And we got that too. But you didn't really laugh at the one that's already been published, so maybe I won't be offended by you not laughing. But this one you still have a chance to change with your laugh. I biked to the Florida Gun Show. Upon arrival at the Central Florida Fairgrounds, there were yellow yard signs announcing "No loaded guns," and another "No loaded guns," and another "No loaded guns." When you entered each building, you're asked, "Any guns? Any guns?" One gentleman didn't ask me, which I took as a judgment of my character. I was curious how much I might blend in, or if the progressive liberal could be smelt on me. If I wanted to be in camouflage, I could have worn actual camouflage or any number of graphic tees announcing my allegiance to God, country, Trump, my love of my wife and my weapons, and my distaste for the Democratic Party. Instead, I donned my khaki shorts, which I intentionally pulled down, and a graphic tee that said Monopoly and had some Monopoly playing pieces on it. Monopoly isn't partisan, is it? I asked the traffic cop if there was somewhere I could lock up my bike, and she pointed me to the small area by the bathrooms. There were about 10 or so motorcycles, bikes on steroids, and I managed to find a telephone pole to strap my steed to. Any attempt to not look nervous was betrayed by the steady stream of sweat the bike ride had created. I entered, was asked if I had any guns, and paid $15 to an older woman, and was given a stamp on my hand in blue ink that simply said, "Gun." "Sign up to win a gun," a woman announced. I didn't particularly want a gun, but I do like to win things, so I gave someone somewhere my name and phone number and can't wait to see how it's used. Will they send a follow-up feedback service? How likely are you to recommend guns to a friend? On a scale of not very to extremely likely, how likely are you to use a gun to murder an enemy? The show was separated into Building 1 and Building 2. A sheep by nature, I headed to Building 1. The interior design of the show was fascinating. The color palette was predominantly black, as guns in their cases tend to be, and then a few small yellow flags for each vendor stuck up into the sky, giving the room a sort of bumblebee feel. A few vendors had a distinct smell that reminded me of my dad when he worked on cars and came home with his hands and clothes covered in grease. The hall had a steady din of conversations, questions about gun specifics and pricing and background checks, and every 10 minutes or so, the sound of a cracking stun gun would echo through the hall. I've also heard them in police body cam footage. 6 rows of tables had what must have been 2,000 guns on display. The guns were laid out with without their magazines or bullets and connected by a thread that spun to a lock. It felt at times like a shoe store, the number of styles that there were, and also like an Apple store, the guns being locked to the table by ropes. The amount of guns laid out on their cases reminded me of... I'm being redundant here. There are many styles for many different occasions. Is the event tonight formal or casual? I want to make sure to bring the right gun. There are a variety of sizes, some so heavy you could kill without the bullet, and other tiny, dainty guns. Give the gift of safety, read a sign. The way they're locked up, this thin black rope snaking through the triggers of each gun like a kid with a crayon drawing a wandering line. They're on top of their cases, these little plastic briefcases, which reminded me of the drill and screwdriver case I have at home. I picked up a gun to see what it might feel like. I have a vague memory of my father taking me shooting, and a more vivid memory in college of holding a prop gun. I was the stage manager for a show, and I remember setting it up on the prop table each night. It felt like power. I handled about 50 different guns, animating my face with each. Oh yes, this could be good to protect myself. Oh yes, I like the feel of this one. I imagine it's what it might be, like at Disney World in the Harry Potter universe, finding a wand that's just right for me. Does the man pick the gun, or does the gun choose the man? Guns felt similar to dogs, shoes, and cars, many sizes, many styles, and many names of which I have no clue what they mean. I did recognize some of the guns from TV. Glock, I saw you on The Wire. Hey, you were in a Western pistol. I thought that was you. Rifle, your career is blowing up. One gun felt right in my hand, a good hand feel, and when I saw it was manufactured in the Czech Republic, I considered taking my hands and going hunting there. There's probably a joke about the Czech hunter, which I think only one person here will get. Despite handling about 50 guns myself, I was never approached by a salesperson. I don't know whether it was my Monopoly t-shirt, my bright orange backpack with Aperol Spritz in the bottom corner, or how I was holding the guns, but they could smell that I was not a serious gun buyer. The aisles between the guns had room for 2 lanes of traffic, but got clogged often. Everyone was very polite. I've never heard "excuse me" more often. Some part of me thought there'd be big dogs there, woofing and telling people to get out of their way. Instead, everyone was polite, a sort of gentlemanly etiquette that reminded me of how everyone in Hollywood is nice or faux nice, since you never know who's going to be powerful the next day. Here, you never know who's going to shoot your face off. The first gun to greet me, the corner of the table, was a new Trump 47. I don't believe in God, but Trump being the 47th president and the AK-47 also having that number is one of those nasty synergies that makes you think someone is scripting this whole thing. There was plenty of Trump stuff. One vendor had a MAGA special AK-47s for $3.99 and a huge image of Trump's assassination attempt with the message, "Fight, fight, fight." It prompted me to text my friends, if there's a civil war, we lose. To which he said, the person who loses is who is not in control of the U.S. military. You can't shoot down a drone with an AK-47, Jason said. Okay, just making sure the next paragraph's interesting. Towards the end of my laps, I probably covered the full grounds twice, some areas 3 times. I went to a digital target station. A man who struck me as a nerdy mad scientist had a series of targets on the wall and play guns, and real ones set up with some lasers. Next to 2 targets was a sign that said Sean Hannity promoted with a photo of him, but it was placed in a way that seemed to invite Sean as a target practice. I took aim and hit every target with shocking ease. I was close to them and it wasn't a real gun, but I was delighted. He turned on a target that moved back and forth in about 3 feet. Get him, a man behind me taunted. I shot, bullseye through the chest, and the little placard stopped moving and fell backwards. I won't lie, and in full disclosure, I had just drank about 1/3 of a Diet Coke, but it felt exhilarating. Being good at something, being praised by a stranger, briefly welcomed into some club of masculinity, all while casually holding a Diet Coke, I suddenly got some of the appeal. There are no plans to hide Smith & Wessons under my... Oh, okay. That's a later concept. There's no plans to don a "one God, one wife, many guns, life is good" t-shirt, but I saw the path from civilian to gun freak. And then there was only one moment where I felt caught. On one table in between guns was a slice of a tree trunk with a stuffed dog sitting on top of it. Suddenly the plush animal moved. It was a live toy poodle, hair in a ponytail and an all-around good girl vest on. An older woman behind the counter was talking to another vendor, and I couldn't help myself. "Can I pet your dog?" She paused, taking me all in. "Sure." The faggot had jumped out. Straight men aren't asking to pet a toy poodle, at least not after laughing. "Ha ha ha, that's some dog you got there, ain't it?" I don't know what that meant. The petting was unsatisfactory. The dog never wanted them to begin with, and I left outed and newly afraid for myself. "Keep your eye on that dandy over there, Jebediah," I assumed the woman said. There wasn't a lot of queer representation at the Florida Gun Show. Gender and sexuality is a beautiful spectrum and can't be inferred by appearance, but I didn't see any out gay men. There were 2 lesbian couples, and one was clearly the femme, and one was the stud. I don't know if that's interesting or I just observed that. Gay stuff. There were a lot of pit bulls and large dogs. A round man with a long gray beard was rolling his pit bull in a stroller, which made me think we have more in common than we realize. Building 2 had more of a red, white, and blue aesthetic, playful, and here included the quirkier of the offerings, T-shirts and toy guns at the far end. Also, the vendors seemed to be more needy and attention-starved. First, giant safes, things you could survive a tornado in. "Can I help you with anything?" a young girl asked. I didn't want to waste her time, but I was curious how they transported them. "My stepdad delivers them." I had the urge to ask to stand inside one, but I thought that would be impolite. They cost between $2,000 and $6,000, so I didn't want to dirty them. Next to them was concealment services. On a long table was a paper towel holder, a lighthouse sculpture, and a sign that said "Take a number" next to a grenade. An older blonde woman in a red top was behind them, and I worried they were her art, so I lingered long enough not to offend. Then she reached to one of the paintings behind her and slid it open, revealing a container with a gun in it. I felt like I was in a spy movie. Everything there was concealing a gun, under the paper towel, the lighthouse, even the grenade. Then the gentleman pressed on the large bookcase behind them, and it revealed a hidden room right out of Clue. "We hide guns and stuff," he said to a prospective buyer. I just learned that my mom and dad have one gun in a safe and another in a drawer for faster access, which concerns me with 2 kids under 2 starting to grow and visit. I thought the frame might be a nice thing for them, so I approached the woman in red. "My dad has his in a drawer." "You want a drawer?" She pressed beneath the table, and suddenly a drawer fell down, and a gun slid out. "We got drawers." A magnet triggers the mechanism to reveal the gun, and she was ready to defend her home against invaders. I felt like I was in a magic shop asking for demonstrations of the magic tricks. I asked her if they had any success stories, a situation where the concealment helped someone defend themselves. She was at a loss for words and called the gentleman over who designed the products. I didn't want to seem like I was milking them for a story, so I said, does anyone bring back stories?" "We've never had anyone bring one back." "No, like, have you heard a story?" "Oh, I'll tell you one. I had the drawer, and one night I heard this noise. I hop up and pull out my weapon, and I look, and it's Pierre, my then girlfriend. She had her days mixed up. I said, 'Don't you ever do that. If it had been night, ... You wouldn't have a girlfriend anymore,' I said. Well, I guess you don't." I'm not sure what the success of that story is, other than he didn't kill his girlfriend with the gun he had hidden in his home. But any lack of a loss of life is a win, I suppose. There were stun guns, holsters, basic and personality-driven, with emotional support pistol, do not pet, and Mickey and Minnie, right and left-handed. Silences, uppers, which look like long tubes, concealed carry handbags, dangerous design, serious style. I was trying to read a man's shirt whose seated belly was obscuring part of it when he popped up to give me a demonstration. "You give me any knife, I'll sharpen it." "I don't have a knife." "I've got one here." He pressed it against his device, 2 small sticks that crossed each other like a pair of scissors, and began to file the blade and deliver his script. He had a Ronco Showtime rotisserie vibe about him. When he sharpened garden shears, I felt the need to justify his performance. "My mom could use these. Let me text her." Mom did ask for the website, and before sending, I remembered his shirt. Quote, "I like my guns like I like my Democrats," or "I like my guns like Democrats like their voters," undocumented, and decided to not send her the website. The neediest vendor in Building 2 must have been the first aid kit stand. He was so starved for attention, he gave me a "How's it going, boss?" even though I was a good 12 feet away. That's pretty long, but there needs to be a good button at the end. A red hat was for sale that said, Trump was right about everything. It seemed to be a bold claim that triggered my SAT brain. Words like always, never, everything, nothing are red flags for a statement being false. Two old men walked by the hat. One read it aloud. Trump was right about everything. His companion added no commentary, nor the original speaker. The sentence just hung in the air, waiting for someone to poke a hole in it. Someone to poke a hole in it who never came. Maybe that's the ending, probably. And then that was fun. Thank you for nudging me, Eric, to keep going.